Welcome to the Return of WADJEDI Serpent Power Podcast. Here we explore the science of serpent energy and how it is used in yoga, ritual, and medicine to achieve the highest levels of fitness, emotional and sexual wellness, financial prosperity, healing, and spiritual mastery. I'm your host, Fly Priestess, and I invite you to join me on this captivating journey of self-discovery and empowerment. There it is. All right. Blessings, greetings. Okay, having some little technical issues there. So let me make sure that I'm good to go in this spot right here. Blessings, love, greetings. Welcome everybody. Okay, let me get in my seat here and make sure that we're good to go live. Okay, welcome to episode 13. Let me make sure that I'm set up here. I had to rearrange my setup in the last moment there. So, okay. All right. Thank you for joining me. I am Raven Alvarez, the Fly Priestess, and this is episode 16 of our podcast, Return of WADJEDI podcast. This is our series on spiritual anatomy. And so within the bigger series of spiritual anatomy, we're having a discussion talking about the chakras. So we want to run back through because sometimes it's best to go back to basics when we're talking about serpent power and serpent power energy. It's better to go back to basics and actually start to just give ourselves a refresher. There's nothing wrong with a refresher course. Give ourselves that refresher and then find out what it is. Go over any little points that we have missed. And then once we do that, we're able to get into, the deeper energies and just kind of go down into the deeper, the more sacred and all of that. So this week, the last 4 sessions that we've had, last 4 connections that we've had have been talking about the root chakra. So in the root, we spent the first week going over the root chakra and talking about what it is, how it spins, how it works, how it develops. And then we were talking about, the different aspects of the root chakra. What makes a healthy root? What does it look like when it's out of balance? What kind of things bring it back into balance? And then a healthy root chakra, how does a healthy root chakra express itself out into the world? What does that look like? What does that mean? So we have moved on now. So if you'd like to find more information about all of the other different, all of the others, oops, there, okay. Sorry about that. So if you'd like more information on anything that we talked about the root chakra, we had 2 fantastic interviews. My friend and brother Andre Hill and his podcast Straight Talk Network. I have an episode on there that's on my YouTube channel. So please go ahead to my YouTube channel, Fly Priestess, YouTube at Fly Priestess, and find it there. Excellent discussions on the healed root chakra and how that relates to communal land economics. Definitely a great discussion. Don't want to miss that. So this next few weeks, we are here talking about the sacral chakra, and we have some deep points to cover. So tonight we're going to discuss the root chakra and how it goes into, the sacral chakra, and just talk about the actual physicality of the root chakra. Next week, we're going to get into some personals. Each chakra, each part of the spiritual anatomy that we discuss, I like to spend some time talking about my personal experience with that particular chakra, and then what that has meant for me in my journey as a spiritual woman. And I love to hear from you guys too. If you have anything to share, any comments, and any things like that, please drop those in there. Please remember to like this video, share this video, subscribe to my channel if you want to find out more information about any of the chakras, about spiritual anatomy, or about Kemetic spirituality, or any ancient indigenous spirituality as a whole. I have loads of information that is on my Patreon facebook.com/Temple of the Green Goddess. You can find more information over there. If you want healing modalities, ways to unblock the chakras, ways to develop chakras that were underdeveloped, due to trauma and things like that. If you want to find out information about those videos are on my Patreon. So if you subscribe to my Patreon, $4.45 starts at $4.44 a month and goes from there. So anyhow, yes, circling back, let's jump on in. So I wrote down a few things so that I can keep my thoughts in order, because I do like to talk all around the place. So the sex chakra, basically, let's talk about just what it is. What is it? How does it work? How does that even go? The sex chakra, the color that goes with this, the sacral chakra, and I call it the sex chakra specifically because that is where pleasure, sex comes from. So survival sex is in the root chakra. So when sex is done for the purpose of procreation, then it is a root chakra energy. And when we go into the different spiritual systems and things like that in the world that have wanted to relegate sex and make sex illegal outside of the context of procreation, those are religious systems that are specifically trying to force you to maintain a root chakra modality. So they want your life and your existence to be based in the root chakra. They want you to be thinking about survival, about taking care, like literally only taking care, only connecting to those who look like you, those who act like you, those who seem like you, people who share culture with you. Do not go outside of your own borders, your own boundaries. And it's about setting up a closeness there where only your survival interests are the only things that matter. When we get out of survival mode and we move forward, and survival mode comes from inside of us as individuals, it comes from survival mode between people who are relating to each other in any type of relationship. Those different modes also affect how people relate to each other as a community and then as a nation. So all of these things, so things that are based in truth, that the truth can be found. You could take that truth up to different levels or take it down to smaller levels. For example, if you go out to the planets, if you go out to the sun and the planets, the planets are spinning around the sun, around that central energy center of light. And if you go down to the atomic level, you have electrons, protons, neutrons, you have things that are all spinning around a central force of electricity, of heat, of energy. And so as above, so below. So things that are true and not our personal truth, things that are true can exist above and below. So these energies go above and below. And the chakras and the way their alignment works and the way they work it matches us in the higher realms and also in the human realm, and then also at the lower realms too. So there is an energy, a habit, a vibration, a color, a smell, a sense, and things like that all match with the different chakras. So root, survival. So then when we bring sexuality into the sacral is not just about sex, but it is the sex chakra, because sex is much bigger than what we currently consider to be sex. Sex is greater than a tool of pleasure, of connection between two people that just provides pleasure. Sex energy is actually much, much bigger than that. So the sacral chakra, which is the sex chakra, is much bigger than that also. It's not just about having sex and about having sex for pleasure. It's much bigger and much deeper. The sacral chakra is, besides the heart chakra, is the only one that is actually capable of feeding all of the other chakras. So, if you want to damage all of the chakras, if you want to make one attack on a being, like for example, these parasitic entities that are in control of our planet currently, if you want to take control of a being and you have one arrow, you're going to take that arrow and you're going to shoot that arrow into the sacral chakra, because that one chakra, if it's blocked, then all of the others will become blocked. And if it's open and flowing, it will feed and nourish all of the other chakras. The only other chakra that's capable of that is the heart chakra. So the heart chakra, which is our foundational chakra, the heart is actually the first chakra. The root is not the first. The heart is the first. So That one is our first, and everything circles around and it makes a complete circuit, like an AC DC current goes around that whole way. And it goes, and that chakra is able to feed all of the other chakras in the body, feed all of the minor sub chakras of the system too. So we have 7 to 12, and we'll get into, at the end of our chakra series, we're going to talk about, well, why do some systems say 7, and why do some say 12, and why do some say 11, why do some say 9? We're going to get into that. First, we're going to discuss the 7 major chakras, and then what those do, and then we'll get into a deeper discussion later on. So these chakras, the sacral chakra, if you want to damage an entire person, if you just hit them just in the sacral chakra, you have the ability to damage their entire being and to throw off the entire system within them. And so when we see how the Roman system, the system of ancient Greece and of Rome, and how they treated boys and men, and then later on how they treated young girls, this same energy which is carried out like within the Catholic Church, this same energy which is carried out in Hollywood, in certain certain parts of Western culture, this specific energy, and which is permeated, it goes through, because all of that same specific energy, what they show us in movies and things like that, they show us things that will damage us in the heart chakra and damage us in the sacral. And because once they have that, once they lock that, once they block that, that means they have the whole rest of the being under control. Once they grab your pleasure center and they own and control the pleasure center, now the rest of your senses are blocked. So the takeover is done by controlling the root chakra. And please don't think that I'm pointing out any of these things in order to, this is not about fear, but because fear is a root chakra, that's a lower center. If we give in to the fear, or if we focus on the fear of these things, then we get stuck there, we get locked there. But if we think about these things, if we just face the truth, if we face the truth, we're coming at that with our third eye, and our third eye has the power to activate and create plans and create strategies and ways of getting us out. It has the ability to see vision, see through. We can see through the things that are going on and see beyond the things that are going on. And we can create a reality with our vision, and then we can manifest that reality with our other chakras. So when we talk about difficult things that are going on, we're not talking about those things in order to be fearful and afraid and things like that. What we want to do is notice what's going on, focus on what's going on, so that we can develop a plan and a strategy in order to overcome those and place the vision that we have from inside of us for our way of co-creating reality, and place that vision over the current way that the world is run. So, and we can only do that, we can't do that by changing the entire planet. We do that by changing our own reality. But if each of us taps into all of our open, free-flowing centers and pours our reality into the world, that's based on heart, that's based on openness, that's based on love, that's based on connection and unity, then we just develop a better world. While we're trying to fight the system and fight the things that are there, and be fearful of the evils that are presented in our world by these parasitic energies that are in control of things, then we stay locked in that holding pattern with them. So I'm sharing all of these types of things about these parasitic entities, not to make you afraid, but to make you realize this is what's there, and then what can I do about it? What can I do? We each win by healing ourselves. The only way to win in this world and to raise the vibration of the planet as a whole is to heal yourself. And then the light and the love that emanates out of you as a healed being will automatically start to pour onto others and start to heal them and change them and shift them. You don't have to try, and you don't have to want that for them. It will just happen naturally, because that's how energy flows. So, sex chakra, orange, the color orange. And this is on a frequency spectrum. So root chakra vibrates at red. The sacral chakra vibrates at orange. So that's the color that goes with it. The sex chakra is connected to water and to liquid and to things that have that contain that element. So in the body, all fluids that are in the body are under the realm of the sacral chakra. So the blood, even though the blood, when we spoke about in the last, in talking about the root chakra, the blood is based in the root, and there are aspects of the blood. The blood is a very complicated entity, and a complicated energy. It has more than one thing. It's not just blood. It's not just the scientific, like it's the thing with blood. Like we say, blood has DNA, blood has iron, it has different, nutrients, and it has different energies. It carries our ancestral information. Blood is also connective. And so because it moves with fluid, so the fluid that holds the blood cells, is connected to the sacral chakra. Also lymph and plasma, the gastric juices in the body, and sperm and yoni fluids. All of those things are all under the realm of the sacral. The sense of taste. So root chakra is the sense of smell, and smell is a deep and primal sense that is also very, very powerful to shift things within us. So if anybody knows about the power of essential oils, one of the reasons why essential oils work so well is because they contain potent things that actually activate our sense of smell. And so before we even put them on us, before they even connect with our skin, our olfactory nerves, the nerves in the nose, are picking them up and sending messages to the brain about that particular vibration. So the sense of smell is deeply powerful. It's very primal and deeply powerful sense. So the next one after that is sacral, which is the sense of taste. And if we think about taste, again, when we think about diet, and think about what types of foods that you eat on a regular basis. Does your diet consist mostly of foods that taste good to you, that specifically that the most important thing for you for eating? Is the most important thing how the food tastes? Or is the most important thing what the effect of the food? What do you eat for? Are you eating to feed and nourish your cells, or are you eating to connect to your tongue? Because think about it, your tongue is what, 2.5 to 3 inches in total. Well, if you stretch it from the tip back down to the back of your throat, the tongue, that little 2.5 to 3 inches, and then your digestive system is about 28 feet in length. So are you interested in nourishing what's passing through 28 feet, or what's passing through that first 3 inches? So this area this little first 2 to 3 inches is where the pleasure is located, and also sometimes the not pleasure. So it's pleasure and not pleasure. So if you don't like the way something tastes, you might never eat it again. You might decide, oh no, I don't like broccoli. I'm never eating broccoli ever again. I had it and it was disgusting, and I'm just never eating it again. But it has anti-cancer properties, it has all these things, and you're like, I don't care what it's got, I'm never eating broccoli again, it just tastes too bad. So that means that you are locked, so that your sacral chakra being out of alignment, the pleasure-seeking aspect of the sacral has become overgrown and become more important to you than the things that feed and nourish you. So if staying inside your body and holding space for yourself and being contained inside your own vessel are important, but you feel like you need to give in to the sexual energy of a stranger, for example, and that especially there's sexual diseases, there's things like that. But if the seeking of pleasure is more important to you than any danger you might experience, than anything like that, and you'd rather face the danger, face the possible demons or the negative energy or entities that you can pick up from a random stranger, if having sex with a random stranger in order to give yourself pleasure is more important, if the pleasure is more important than any of the dangers you face, then you are locked into a holding pattern. Your sacral chakra has become out of alignment because the pleasure becomes the most important purpose behind why you do things. And there are lots of reasons for damage in that area. So we will talk about those again in the future, a little farther down the road here. So the organs connected to, or the parts of the body that are connected to the sacral, obviously besides the genitals, are the kidneys, the pelvic floor. So when people do Kegels, ladies, when you do Kegel exercises and you squeeze that pelvic floor, or you raise up that pelvic floor energy, that is connected to the sacral. And obviously, yes, reproductive organs, pelvic floor, and kidneys. So healthy kidneys are incredibly important to the whole functioning of the sacral chakra, of the sacral of that whole system. Kidneys regulate the fluids in the body, they regulate the hormones, the hormone release in the body, and the hormones, not only the fight or flight hormones, which are connected to the root, but also the sex hormones. So the androgens are made there. So the male and female hormones are both made by the kidneys, and then before they're even made by the genitals. So kidneys are incredibly important. So the water balance that we have in the body, the fluid balance in the body, all of those things affect how well and healthy and developed and aligned the sacral chakra will be. And it goes both ways. So an out of balance sacral chakra will cause issues in those body parts. And then also, if you cause damage to those body parts, in turn, you're causing damage to the sacral chakra. And so these things they flow both ways. So the physical and the energetic bodies, they are in tune, they are connected, they are interwoven. So what happens in one realm will eventually also affect the other. So there's polarity. The sacral chakra is about polarity. And polarity, so when we go again, so I'm just going to keep referencing the root so that we can understand the difference or the evolution of the chakras as we go through the systems. The root chakra is about us alone, us as individuals, the self. And it is us, and the only connection past that is our connection to source. And that's at whatever level of understanding that we have, whether the source is the mother that you came out of, or whether source is your infinite source of the beginning of the universe, whichever sense of source that you are, but it still is about connecting you back to source. It's about self. It's about the number one. Sacral is about the number two. Sacral is about the separation there. So there's a separation that takes place. The separation that takes place in the sacral is similar to, if you go to all ancient stories have metaphoric references that we can learn from. So one common, although I am Kemetic and I'm a Kemetic priestess, and my main language for discussing spirituality is the Kemetic mystery teachings, all systems have. So the Buddhist systems have, the Tantric, the Taoist systems have, the Hindu systems have. All of these systems all contain the same truths spoken in different ways. So if we go to biblical text, then when we talk about the Adam and the Eve, and so these are two separate beings. So we have this garden and we have this deity in the garden, and there's a separation. So these two beings who were there, there's a separation between them and the garden. So while they're existing in the garden, while they're at one with nature, all of their needs are met. So this is root chakra, survival, connection to root, and all of the survival needs are all met. But there comes a point where there's a separation, and where now they have to understand the world. They have to find their place in the world. They have to understand themselves in connection to the world. And you can't fully understand your connection to something outside of you unless you pull back, you separate yourself from it, and then you understand yourself, and then you understand it in the duality. And then the duality, once understood, duality seeks unity, and then it goes back into that space where you unify, and you become whole, and you become root, and then you return from root to source. So that's how the process goes. So although the biblical story has been told in a way that is to make people believe that the leaving the garden was a situation of evil, actually in the original Gnostic texts that mystery teaching was written, that story is an example, it's a reflection, it's an understanding of the duality that's required in order for growth. So for spiritual evolution, separation from one into two becomes necessary. So there are two separations that take place in that story. So there's the Adam being, there's the Adam, and who is one being, but then from the Adam is pulled out an Eve. So there's this is a separation from one being into two beings. And separate, I'm talking about this separate from the argument of which gender came first. That's not the point here. So the point in this is that there is one being, and then from that being was pulled a separate being, and now we have two separate beings. So there is a separation here. And now, because there are two separate beings, now we have like, well, what are you? What am I? What are our roles in relation to each other now that we are more than one? What are you? And then in the understanding of the what are you, what am I, and what are we in relation to each other, this is when, once this question gets asked, and this question, this is represented by the serpent, and of, you know, my WADJEDI family there, the Wadjet, the serpent, comes in. The serpent represents wisdom, and the serpent represents movement and energy. So when wisdom, movement, and energy come, and it invites separation. It invites, hey, are you sure this is the right place for you? Do you really feel like this is where you're supposed to be? Because there's more. Do you want to know more? And then this opens up the question. This opens up. So this is the fall of innocence. This is the opening and the awakening. Okay, so, oh, wow, there's more? What? There's more. What else is out there? Well, here in this space, you're never going to find out what more there is, because here all of your needs are met. So there's no growth past here. If you stay here in this garden where all of your needs are met, you don't have to grow, because everything that you need, so it's complete. You're in wholeness, you're in completion. If you want to understand who and what you are and what your function is, you need to separate yourself from the totality of everything that you have, from all of your needs being met. And then you go from there, separate yourself from everything being met. And then that's when you begin the journey to understand self, and to understand self in connection to the outside forces. And then that's when spiritual evolution begins. So the story isn't told, the story is told, but only those who understand the process of serpent power, of evolution, of spiritual evolution, are going to understand what the story is actually saying. So this story is expressing the sacral chakra energy. It is expressing the separation into two things. And the separation into two things gives you the ability to know self and understand self, and then to be able to start the journey into the full understanding, where after the full understanding, then it winds back in. This is why there's yin and yang. This is why yin and yang have these two separate energies. This is why yin and yang have the two dots, where they fold back into each other. So they expand as far as possible, and then eventually fold back into each other. So polarity creates energy. So just like a battery, just like you got your two currents, polarity creates energy. So once these two things have been separated, now there's a current, because each one is magnetic, and then there's a current in between the two that creates an electricity. So now there's this electric force in between the two. And as long as there is polarity, there will always be energy. When there is totality, one is totality source. And when there's two, then that's when there's energy and movement. That's why the serpent is introduced into the garden. There is movement. And movement, because there is a separation which requires wisdom and understanding, that's what the serpent represents there. So the first chakra, of course, self, solo, unity with source. And then the second chakra is about connecting with others. But the eventuality is always going back to source. The return trip is always guaranteed. The return trip is built into the exit. So we have the yang, which represents, the yang is the masculine principle, masculine polarity, and the yang is about stability, it's about stillness, and it's about electricity. Electricity is a current. It's a especially a direct current. There's current, and electricity is about that. So the masculine energy, stability, stillness, about holding still, about holding a position, about boundaries and solidness. But then when that feminine principle gets introduced, the feminine principle, the yin principle, is about flow, so that there's flow and movement. And when these two are put together, when stability and stillness are put together with flow and movement, when these two put together, there is these two polarities create again the oneness. So this oneness and this connection is brought together. So like at the human realm, this connection and oneness is brought together during human sexuality. So during sexuality, when there's divine union, when there's connection between two people, that's a way of getting back to that wholeness, back to that oneness. And sexuality, when it is used and connected with, and I say used in a understand please what I'm saying, used intentionally, when there is intentionality behind sexuality, then this energy can take a person into divine union. This is what a lot of the ancient texts have written about, divine union. But when sexuality is used just for pleasure, when it is stuck at that center, then the cycle, that catches us. So we become stagnant. It's possible to become stagnant and stuck in the earth realm and stuck in that circle. So just caught between, so sexual pleasure or life pleasure, and then going down into survival mode. So you can go from survival into pleasure, and then survival back down to pleasure. And there are people who spend their entire lives never making it, never advancing spiritually beyond these two chakras. So you can go where you're just worried about your sexual energy, where you're just worried about connecting with another person, where you're just worried about them seeing you and you seeing them, and making this connection at a basic level, or people who have transactional sexual energy, where people give their beauty or give their sexual energy out to others, and they expect some kind of exchange and some kind of return on that energy in a very transactional way. So when for example, when people pay for sex, when there is a financial resource that is exchanged for sexual energy, this is a transactional. And sometimes the transaction is that blunt and direct, and sometimes it's indirect. And sometimes it's, well, this person took me out to dinner, and I'll have sex with them, or they paid for dinner, so now I owe them sexual energy. This transactional type of thinking like keeps humans caught in a lower cycle. So this is that cycle where they just left the garden, and now it's fighting to get back in the garden. I'm just fighting to get my needs met. I'm using all of my energy and all my resources just to get my needs met. So this energy, this sexual energy, can take me all the way to the divine. It can feed and fill and unblock all of my chakras. Sexual energy, the sacral, has the power to unblock all of the other chakras. But if we just think about sex just in terms of pleasure, the only chakras that will be stimulated are the sacral and the root. So we would just go back into survival issues, survival and connection on those levels. Very, very important to make a distinction and to be honest with ourselves about what energy are we really using, which one are we really bringing to our situation, which one is it that we're really trying to use, and what do we want to do with that energy? Because sexual energy is not the only one. So we've just been speaking about survival and sexuality, but the sacral is so much bigger than that. The sacral, and one of the reasons that the sacral energy is so potent and so powerful is because the sacral also has the capacity to unblock the heart. So we were talking about how the heart, in the last time when we were discussing the root chakra, the heart has the power to unblock the root. And so the sacral has the power to unblock the heart. So that means that if it has the power to unblock the heart, to go directly to the heart, and it has the power to unblock and open up everything else, then whoever is in control of your sacral chakra is in control of you. So you have to think about who that is. Is it you? Are you in control of your own sacral? Do you have issues with pornography? Do you have issues with masturbation? Do you have issues with chasing after sex, whether it's men or women? Or do you have an issue with chasing after sex? Do you use sex to help validate you, to validate your sense of beauty, to validate your sense of self, to validate your worth and your ability as a person? If you're using sexual energy for that, then you're blocked. And being blocked in that area also blocks because sexuality and sexual energy and the sacral energy is about your creativity. It's about your creative capacity in all areas of your life. So when people are worried about not being able to manifest, if you've ever done manifestation work and you're finding, wow, no matter how much I do these different things, I tried the secret and I did the affirmations and I tried all this stuff and I keep listening to these frequencies and they're not doing anything for me, I'm not getting abundant. I'm constantly having issues with my money. There's a block in your sacral. If you're not abundant at the level that you want, if you are not co-creating your reality at the level that you want, then there is a blockage there, and that blockage needs to be addressed. Because if you are continually, like if you feel like you're putting all of your most creative visions onto these different aspects of your life and nothing is happening, that's the block. The block is there. That block is sacral. And unlocking your sacral can go in both directions. So you can use sexual energy, you can use sexual energy directly to open you and free you and expand your being when it's done in a healthy and intentional and loving environment. Or you and freeing yourself in that way with connected, beautiful, deep, divine sex, you can unblock your sexual energy so that your creative energy does become free, so that your abundance capacity does become free. If anybody who's having money struggles, we were talking in the last sessions about how the root chakra is about your finances, your ability to survive, whether if you're still in survival mode all the time, if you're always showing up late to places, if you're stuck and you just get, no matter what you do, you cannot seem to get that better job or get that raise or get that higher pay or kick that business off and make it really give you back dividends. If you feel like you're pouring endless hours, like you finally made it to entrepreneurship, but you pour endless hours into your business and endless money is not pouring back onto you from the things that you've done, that's your root is blocked. But not only that, there's the sacral energy. The sacral energy is pulling. The sacral energy is being pulled. If your root is blocked, then that energy is being pulled. And so it is extremely important, especially if you're having issues with your finances, to go into both of those realms. And I'm super excited to hear from you guys. I would love to please in the comments just share with me anything about your sacral chakra journey, anything that has happened to you that is connected, and we're like, oh, okay, that's understanding now. That is starting to make sense about why I'm constantly coming up with creative visions, but they just don't seem to manifest. That means that your root, the damage in your root energy is pulling on your sacral. And so you have to go back and you have to heal your root. You have to open your root. You have to unblock your root. And once that is unblocked, then you have the capacity for all of that power, all of that energy, all of that free flowing motion that's in your sacral to be able to move that and to let that flow and allow your creativity. If you find that you're just not creative, if you have difficulty coming up with creative solutions for things, creative solutions are for anything, whether it's like those, in IQ tests where they make you do, come up with creative solutions for something, or if you're actually in a real life situation where you have a problem in front of you and without somebody else telling you how to solve that problem, you just cannot think of a solution on your own, then that's a block in the sacral energy. And so it's really important to get this out, to open this and allow this to flow. So just as a refresher from last time when we were talking about the development of chakras and how they function and how they even look. So the chakras are like buds. So the chakra is like a little closed flower bud when we're born. And this little closed flower bud, as we grow and as we develop, it starts to open and open and open. So it opens slowly until it becomes all the way open like a flower. And it does both. So it moves slightly as it starts to open, and as it develops, it starts to spin. And there's more than one layer. So there's more than one layer of petals. So these petals, they move in opposite directions, and this is how the energy is able to be pulled into the chakra and also be put out, to be emitted from the chakra. So it opens up. So a nice, healthy sacral chakra is going to be open. It's going to be about 7 to 10 inches in diameter, and it's going to be in a healthy spin. It's going to be spinning, and it spins at about the same speed as your heart beats. So every time you hear boom, 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 that's about the speed that it's spinning at. So it's spinning like that. And when it's blocked, so anybody who has experienced sexual trauma in their childhood, anybody who has been told during their childhood, especially when, okay, say for example, playing games, you're just playing a game, you're playing by yourself in a little imaginary world, because the realm of imagination, that freedom that's imagination, is the realm of the sacral chakra. So you're in your little imaginary world and you're playing, and then somebody comes and yanks you, stop that, cut it out, don't play like that, and they pull you back from it. And then if you start to feel shame, if you're made to feel ashamed because of how you play, or when you're playing by yourself, playing with others, and your imagination, and people tell you, oh, you stop thinking like that. Oh, that's just nonsense. You shouldn't think like that. And as you grow through your development, especially in the first 7 years, the first 7 years is your root, and your sacral chakra gets developed during that time. All the first cycle of development, the first 7 years are all root years. And the second 7 years, so from ages 7 to 14, those are the sacral years. So those are the sacral. So you go through a root sacral, you go through a sacral, you go through a solar plexus sacral, you go through the heart. So each one, and then every 7 years, there's like an entire section. So from 7 to 14, if people are putting you down or telling you that your drawings are silly, that your pictures are silly, that your ideas are silly, if you tell an imaginary story to somebody and they tell you that you're silly, or put it down, or put you down, or make you feel some kind of way, and you start to slowly quiet down your imaginary self, your imagination, and until it shuts down, while that process is happening, what that looks like at the chakra level is, so this is growing. So now this may get stunted here. If somebody's constantly telling, oh, get real, but oh, be real, be realistic, that's making this be stuck here. Very especially if that happens between 7 and 14, because that's the age when those energies are wanting to blossom all the way. From 7 to 14 is the time when it opens fully and is able to spin fully. So during that time, you want to make sure that it's connecting, and that it's open, and that it's allowed to be free. So during that time, remember as a parent also, during your children's development, do your very best. The ideas that society is pressing on you, the ideas that you feel as a parent that it's important to you, for you to instill into your children, to indoctrinate your children into the standard culture, oftentimes are damaging their chakras. It's damaging their centers, and it's very especially damaging the root, the sacral, and the solar plexus. And then oftentimes, because of that, the heart gets damaged. A lot of times the heart, if a child has come from a safe, loving home, then the heart stays open. But it's very, very, especially in this modern world, it is very easy to damage the first 3 chakras. So it's really important to be mindful as a parent of how you treat that. If your child, many parents have seen like their children touching themselves, they'll be masturbating, or just touching their body parts, touching their genitals, because they're exploring them and understanding them and connecting that, like, oh, when I do this, it feels like that. And if we respond or react to seeing them do this with some kind of shame or alarm, then this downloads into them that this is shameful, and I'm not supposed to be touching here. This is like an off, I'm not supposed to be here. This something is wrong, and I'm doing something wrong by being here. So they close that parts of themselves up. They shut down to that part. And so as they close up to that body part, they also close up to all of the life force and energy that is coming from that part of them. So that's when the imagination starts to fade, and they try to get real. When we're telling our children to get real and be realistic. Oh, come on. That doesn't really happen. And then conversely, as adults, a lot of times we spend our lives being too realistic. Oh, grow up. Oh, grow up. And what grow up means in our typical societies is stop imagining things, stop being happy, stop feeling joyful, stop responding to joy, and be realistic, which means, pay your bills, pay your taxes, focus on the things that are difficult, go into a solution-based reality and stick yourself there and don't come out. And we can tell by how much it costs to buy a piece of art or something that was made by hand from the creative being of somebody. We can tell by how much people are revered in almost all cultures for being beautiful. Beauty is an energy that is connected to the sacral. It's the beauty, it's a beautiful sexual energy, and people will pay for this. People will pay just to look, just to witness, not even to touch or hold or own. They will pay just to witness beautiful sexual energy, just to witness sexual energy, period. And so when you think about that, how potent and powerful that is, and the fact that that is connected to our divine imagination, our divine intelligence, our divine co-creative capacity, at the most basic level, what people are paying for, what people are exchanging some of their personal energy and time and things for, is to receive back and exchange a download of that sacral energy. So when we contain and when we allow our own sexual energy, our own sacral energy to be free, then we already have our own. So, when we talk about this kind of culture that we live in, this world where there's where there is so much predator energy, where there is rape energy, where there is the energy of domination, of trying to take and own and control, when that energy exists, one way to heal that energy from a communal perspective is that if we all have unblocked sacral energy and our energy is free flowing in that space ourselves, we don't need to go and we don't need to prey on others and to take their energy from them. We don't have to do that because we have our energy is free. The energy is free flowing from inside of us. So when our energy is free flowing, what happens then is that we want to connect with other people whose energy are free flowing. We want to connect with other artists, with other creators, with other people who are divine and open and expansive in their own way. It doesn't have to be our way. We can connect with others who are divine and expansive in their way. And that means so much. That's the point at which we are able to make these connections in the world. So these connections help to draw us back, just like at the personal level, these greater connections. That's why art is so valuable in our different societies and our cultures. Things that are made by the imagination, things that are made by the sacral energy are there. They exist in order to bring us closer to that divine energy. They're there to bring us to unity. You can go to an art gallery with someone and both be looking at the same thing, and you may draw something completely different from it, but there's a sense of awe, there's a sense of connection. The fact that you're seeing this art and it's opening your heart center, it's making something open and come alive inside of you, and you both are able to connect on a point where this is being made alive for you. And so that connection brings you back down, and then that connection brings you back into the space of that oneness. And then a oneness goes into oneness of self, and then the oneness of source. So all about the sacral. So those are the things now. So let's remember, so just as we're closing up, let's remember that it is incredibly important to control your own sacral energy. Incredibly important. If you are drinking, using drugs, if you're shopping, sports, all of these things. So shopping is like all of these things when these things are being used just for pleasure, just for the sake of pleasure. When we have an overbalance. So when a chakra, when the sacral is blocked and it's trying to break free, it will overfeed itself. So because it's blocked and it's supposed to be this powerful force that's flowing in order to soothe or to self-medicate, oftentimes we'll fill ourselves with things of pleasure. So the need for pleasure in somebody who's blocked, because imagine, when this is free-flowing, you are absorbing so much pleasure from the world. When this is free-flowing, you are absorbing from everything. You can go and you can see a beautiful vase of flowers, and it just like fills you and expands you. You could see a beautiful person and it fills you and expands you. You can have a great exchange, a conversation with a friend that fills you and opens you. So you can connect to all things, and your ability to draw pleasure from life is much, much greater when your sacral chakra is unblocked. So you don't need to seek excessive pleasure. When you're seeking excessive pleasure, that's a sign that your sacral is blocked, and that the amount of pleasure necessary for you to fill up on in order to get the same level of pleasure inside your being as somebody who has a sacral chakra that's healed and is flowing is you have a way greater need. So filling yourself with extra weed, filling yourself with alcohol, filling yourself with other drugs, and using the word that needs to be a constant experience, constantly needing to change the music, constantly needing something new, some new input of pleasure in order to continue to get that pop, that snap of pleasure to fill yourself up on. Those are signs of a blocked sacral. Whenever you have besides the drinking and drugs, whenever you need excessive shopping, excessive need to own things constantly is a feminine energy of expression, a feminine expression of the blocked sacral. So the feminine is an empty vessel asking to be filled. And it's like the womb. The womb seeks fulfillment. It seeks fullness. And that's how it finds wholeness. The masculine seeks discharge, seeks release. And so that's why men get addicted to sports and constantly talking about sports and this team, and can jump up and be, going wild and get all these visceral feelings over a sports team and over whether a sports team is winning. That energy, that the fact that watching strangers play a sport and getting such a deep visceral reaction, and then needing to have that reaction repeated over and over, where people are talking about their sports and they're wearing the jersey of their team. All of that energy is a sign of a blocked sacral, because they're seeking the release. Get the ball into the hole. Yes, yeah. Like that release is, and the need for that release over and over is the sacral. And when women are filling up and I need to buy purses and more outfits, and constantly need a new outfit all the time, and need to get makeup, and to the point where somebody is spending money on makeup or shoes or clothes or nails or things like that, past their past their means, past the money that they even have available. Especially so that need for that pleasure, that need to own things. People who are collectors, who are constantly collecting and just want walls and rooms and drawers and things filled up, closets filled up with stuff. That filling is a sign that the sacral is blocked, that there is the block, because the need to own things and the need to derive pleasure from constantly owning things is a sign there's a block there, that there's something that needs filling. And the thing that needs filling in us is never those things. It's never those temporary things. The sacral is connected to the divine, which is infinite. This universe is unbelievably infinite. There's more than you could ever fit in your entire being. Your entire mind couldn't even fathom or comprehend the massiveness of this universe. So there's more than enough to fill us. But when we're here, when we're caught, when we're stuck in this temporariness, when we're stuck down in this survival cycle, then the sacral becomes blocked, and then we need to add things. We need to constantly take short-term things to try to fill that void there. And so it's worth looking into if any of these things apply to you, if any of these things connect to you. Say, what can I do to connect with to heal my sacral? And so next week, every Sunday, 9 p.m., we are going to be discussing these, forever and ever. And so join me next Sunday. We're going to talk about some of the reality of the sacral journey. I'm going to share some of the things that I've been through in my sacral chakra journey, and how they affected me, how they affected my life in my childhood, and also how they affected my choices and my development in my adulthood. And you may find some connection with some of those things, or know somebody who's been through similar issues. And then we'll talk about healing, and then also talk about what does a healed sacral chakra look like? What does that look like? What is the point of healing the sacral? What do I get out of it? I like shopping. Why should I heal my sacral? I'm perfectly fine filling the closet with Gucci shoes. I'm good. Like, there's nothing needs changing. But sometimes when we look past those things, there's a place in us that's longing for some kind of fulfillment that temporary things cannot fill. And then the temporary things might work. Like, for example, it might be fine. We might go out and be able to get some sex every weekend, or go into smoke weed every day. But what happens when it runs out? Temporary things always run out. There's always a moment or a day or a week or a whatever time when it runs out, and then you have to face your actual real self. And then when in that space of having to face your real self, what will you do? What will you do when you don't have the thing that you've been using to fill yourself, to fill the void for you? So it's better off to actually do the real work and get in and find out what's really happening in there, so that you can heal, so that all the power, so that serpent power moving, that WADJEDI, that energy that is moving from inside you, keeps you filled and full and whole and alive. The divine flows through you. It flows through the center of your being and flows through all of your chakras. And you are a light and a vessel that emanates divine energy into the world, rather than being a closed, blocked vessel that is constantly needing to pull things from this temporary world in order to fill itself up. Being infinite is about having divine flow moving through you, and being finite and temporary and moving towards death energy is about having everything blocked and stiff and stuck. And so let's move towards wholeness. Let's move towards the best things that we can want for ourselves. So that's it for this week. It is time for us to go. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you guys next time. And if you guys have anything you would like to add to this, please go ahead and jump in the comments, and I answer all the comments personally, so go ahead and share anything that you would like to there, and we'll connect on the other side. Everybody have a happy Sunday. Mwah. Infinite love to all of you, and I'll see you next time. Fly Priestess, logging off. Want to dive deeper into this topic? Join me on Patreon at Temple of the Green Goddess to unlock exclusive content that will expand your knowledge and spark thought-provoking conversations.